Hollyoaks remains at number 7 in my soap opera rankings for May 2022, mostly because it still has the same problems under Lucy Allen, producer, that it has had for months now. I've been talking about it for months and how this show is an unfocused mess, and I still feel like that. There are so many storylines going on at once that it's hard to care about most of them. And when you're having this many storylines, I mean, at least more than half of them should be good. Like, I'm trying to count how many storylines I have written on this page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There is at least 14 storylines, but this isn't even all of them. There's little storylines here and there with everybody else. There's so much going on that I would respect it if it was being done well, but it's not being done well for reasons I guess I will get into again. And I know some people might disagree with me, and that's fine. This is just my opinion. I feel like on social media, the opinion on Hollyoaks is split, though, with Lucy Allen's Hollyoaks, and I am on the side of it's been bad so far for the most part. Hollyoaks is like, I don't know if anybody from England is watching this, and I assume the only people that watch the British soap opera videos are from England. But in America, there is a thing called the Cheesecake Factory, and the Cheesecake Factory has this gigantic fucking menu with so many options that it becomes overwhelming. Like, what are you going to pick to eat? Because there's just so many options that it becomes overwhelming that you just kind of want to go back to your favorites. A better example of Hollyoaks is that it's kind of like Netflix or a lot of these streaming services. You go on to find a show, but there's just so many shows you don't know what to pick. There's so many movies you don't know what to pick. It becomes overwhelming, and Hollyoaks is like that. It's going for quantity over quality, in my opinion, having all of these storylines, most of which aren't that good. And one of the biggest issues under Lucy Allen, and she has a lot of the negative attributes that I dislike in soap opera writing, is that she keeps bringing in more new characters, expecting us to care about them right off the bat. We have a new big bad, Norma, the big boss in the Ethan plot. We had Nadira, who is Shaq's old friend, and Nadira is into Juliet, who is with Perry, obviously. We have Scott caring for this new girl named Vicky. So we just have more new characters after she already brought in this gigantic family. She brought in the new cop, Pearl. The new characters keep on coming, and it's overwhelming like a fucking Cheesecake Factory menu. And like, I appreciate that every character has a story. Well, almost every character has a story. And that's another thing that bothers me. Like, so many of these characters have their own storylines going on at once, and yet the Devereaux don't. The Devereaux have been completely backburned, and in my opinion, the Devereaux have been one of my favorite parts about Hollyoaks over the past 2 years. But the Devereaux have been mostly decimated and backburned over these past several months, and I'm not happy about that. Like I talked about with the Cheesecake Factory menu, it's so overwhelming that you want to go back to your favorites. Well, I can't even go back to the Devereaux because they don't really have much going on. But I guess we will talk about some of these storylines. There's just so many to go over. I'm not going to touch upon all of them because there's just too many. So I'm going to go with the ones that I like first, which is only a few, and then I'll go with the ones that I dislike the most, I guess, and then there's some in the middle. I love the Imran and Serena budding coupling that's going on. You know, Imran's had this crush on her for a while now, and she ended up kissing him on the cheek this month. And they are getting closer, and Serena's been obsessed with training, and she's also thinking about getting back into drugs, But that's another thing I don't like, because how many addicts do we already have on the show? Like I've talked about for months now. Do we really need to add Serena as another one? This is another problem with having so many storylines, that you kind of start to repeat your own stories at the same time with multiple characters. It's just a lot. But I love Serena and Imran as this budding couple. I stan. I also like Ripley and Brooke as a couple. We didn't get that much of them. Ollie brought back the kid that Brooke and Ollie gave away a couple years ago because they were so young and they wanted to get on with their lives. So I liked that callback to a good storyline a few years ago. But I also like Ripley and Brooke as a couple. They're doing a good job with this Eric, the incel character. They've made him quite the scary character and true to life. I mean, in America, it's we see all these mass shootings at all time, and there's always, if you dig into their manifestos, there's always a lot of misogyny within these shooters because they hate women and they feel like they're constantly rejected by women, and the internet doesn't help. Some places on the internet will definitely hype up these communities to hate women and to want to kill others, and it's very bad, obviously. And Eric is this character who is writing his own manifesto. He's hating all the women in Hollyoaks. He's obsessed with Cleo, and that Cleo's with Joel. When they were drunk, he locked Joel in a room. He was out all night, trying to set up Joel to break those two apart. So they've made Eric a very scary character. So as true to life as that story is in America, sadly, they're doing a good job of showing that on Hollyoaks. And other than that, those are the only storylines that I've actually been enjoying. There's so many others that aren't connecting with me yet. They're still writing like shit for James, in my opinion. Can we just make James get his life together and become the more intelligent, complicated villain that he should be? But they always make James into a fool, or like he has too many issues going on, when that's not what the character should be, in my opinion. So they continue to fill with James, and the James and Stay relationship does nothing for me. They're testing Nadira and Juliet, like I talked about at the beginning of this video, even though Juliet is still with Perry. That has potential, but it's another new character for us to have to care about so quickly. I've talked about how the great soap opera writers of the past talked about, if you are going to bring new characters onto the show, you need to interweave them into the cast slowly. Give it 3 months, because the viewers are just not going to care about them right away 9 times out of 10. So pushing these new characters out front and center too much ain't gonna work. Like, they've done a good job of making Norma, aka The Undertaker, hit the gong from the WWE, because that's quite the nickname, The Undertaker. I'm surprised the WWE isn't suing Hollyoaks, honestly. But Norma's The Undertaker, who's like this big gang member, and they've made her scary. She's threatening Ian. Sienna's been working with Ethan. I said Ian. Ethan. And Ethan's a character that has fallen so flat for me. I've talked about this before. He was another new character, even though he came out in the fall. He's been around for a while now. I still feel like he's new, though, because I just feel like he's been one note this entire freaking time. So Ethan falls flat for me. They've been making Sienna come back into her villainous ways with this storyline. Pearl found out, or all the police found out, about the Maya being uncovered as being dead. That was Ethan's ex. That Sienna and Steve helped bury for Ethan, and now that's been uncovered. So in order to make Pearl try and back up the case, the Undertaker, aka Norma, always sends urns to people who are in trouble. So Sienna sends an urn to Pearl and hoping it gets Pearl to back off, but it could just backfire and have Norma come after Sienna, which is what happens. The last episode I watched for Hollyoaks in May. There's 2 more. I won't be able to watch them before I record this video, because I'm recording it before those episodes have aired. Is that it seems that the Undertaker, aka Norma, has kidnapped Sienna's and Warren's twins. Now, there is potential in this story that it has all these villains involved in it, all of these people who are involved in bad things, like Warren and Ethan and Sienna and the Norma. So, I mean, the potential's there to make this entertaining, I guess, but I've yet to really connect with it, mostly because the Ethan character, for me, is such a weak addition. But that about sums up Hollyoaks. That's all I want to talk about for now. It stays in 7th place. It didn't drop more. It had potential to do that, but Shortland Street came up and sucked in May. So Hollyoaks stays at 7 for now. I still think Lucy Ellen's ways aren't working for me. Personally, I don't like how there is just quantity over quality with the storylines right now. There's a lot of issues going on, just too many new characters at once, too many stories that have the same story thread with all these addictions, which tells me that they're doing too many stories if they have to do the same stories for several characters. But yeah, for now, Hollyoaks remains at 7.